Hi, I'm Susan Lanier, and you're listening to the Movie Raid Show.
It's time for the movie raid. Tonight's victim is actress and musician Susan Lanier, that has done Wes Craven's new The Hills Have Eyes, have Red Rooms, and many television shows like Three's Company, and so forth and so forth. Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Fantastic. Now, you also have a new, at least a current new single called Spooky Love from your music. Is that true? And where can we check it out currently?
Yeah, you can check it out on Spotify, YouTube, iTunes, Apple Music, all of the above. It's called Spooky Love, and it was written in celebration of Halloween and all the Scream people out there. So anybody who likes horror are going to like this song. I have another one that's on YouTube called Watch What You Asked For that I did with Michael Behrman. I wrote the music, and Michael Behrman agreed to do asked to do the music video, and so it stars me and Michael Behrman and Brooke Lewis-Bellis. So it's a lot of fun. It's on YouTube. You can watch it anytime. It's very scary and horror-oriented.
Do you have other music, any other albums that others have yet to discover yet, or are you currently working on any new music?
Well, I have a kind of an older CD called Swamp Cabaret that is available on the platforms I just mentioned. But I have an EP I have yet to release, so that's going to be coming out pretty soon. And I'm in the studio a lot, so I'm trying to be very picky about what goes on that EP, or it might end up being a CD if I get enough music recorded.
Now, are you going to kind of go full blown with the music, or are you just kind of are you a casual musician that you just want to release what you feel like releasing, or do you plan on to actually showcase these live, or if you haven't already?
Well, I work around LA. I live in Los Angeles, and I do gigs in LA, and I appear locally in LA, and I have been doing that since the early 80s. And so I've played all the great clubs in town. There are not as many clubs or rooms as there were in the 80s. But locally, I'm kind of known in the music industry. I kind of just release what I want. At this age, I've been doing it for so many years. I just release what I want out there on in the cosmos,
Does it help you to create better though? Like when you've been performing live and so forth, does it kind of take pressure off you to where you can just create, just release when you feel like it, and you're not opponed by any audience or any other companies that might be interested?
Oh yeah, I love to be in the studio, and I love to decide when I want to record. So I guess my favorite part of the whole process. I guess my favorite part of the process is actually writing the tunes and having them and giving birth to them. It's kind of like giving birth, you get an idea and you sit down and it kind of pops out. Like Spooky Love, several months ago I had said, I think I'm going to write a Halloween tune this year. And I did that 2 years ago with a Christmas tune called Merry Christmas on My Own, which is also available on Spotify and all the other ones. And I just get an idea, and then when I sit down and the words start coming, and it takes usually several days for the whole thing to develop, and it's pretty exciting to feel the process. I was talking to a singer last night. I ran into her at a restaurant, and she plays around in town. And she said, God, I wish I wrote. I only sing. Not all singers can write. That's a whole different gift. And I feel like I'm a stronger writer than singer, even though I love to sing my own stuff. And I write it for myself to sing. I think my strong suit is actually the songs themselves.
And when you are, let's say, just a singer, and what do you need to get that extra boost? So, as far as the writing process of any other songs that you want to get out there, was it a little bit more easier for you when you were performing, like you said before, in the clubs and so forth in the past, or is it a lot easier because now you have technology and plus you might have willing people who's like, yeah, let's just do this.
I'm not real sure about what that question is. Ask that question again. I mean, can you be more specific? I mean, I love both. I love performing. I'm going to do a Halloween gig, and I will be performing Spooky Love. And at this point, I just kind of accept the gigs that come my way. And I had quit performing during COVID. So I put my band on hold when COVID first hit. And that was kind of sad because I miss having an audience. And in an audience, when I have the audience, I'm very spontaneous with an audience too. I don't have the shows so planned that I know exactly what I'm going to do. I usually know the exact order of the songs I'm going to perform, but how I play with the audience and having the audience play with me, that's a whole different trip than being in the studio when it's just about creating the tune itself. Did that answer your question?
Oh yeah, working in between acting and also being a musician, as far when it comes to the creating process, like creating music, can it also help build future character roles, making as like a creative outlet for you as well?
Sure. I mean, Spooky Love, I love my character because, she's fallen for an evil kind of guy. And yeah, and she knows he's a bad boy. A lot of, that's a common story. So, are you a saint or are you the devil? The kiss of death that could end up fatal. So those are a couple of the lyrics. So the songs that I write generally tell a story. Even you're not here anymore, I'm missing you, or you're still in, I have a song called Out of My Mind, and, I can't get you out of my mind. And, so I think every song, if it's delivered properly, it's the telling of the story that the audience is more addicted to than listening to the perfect notes of a singer that is, just singing the song and not really telling the story. There are a few of those out there, but not many. Most of the really great singers, even whether they wrote the song or not, like Whitney Houston, Celine Dion, Christina Aguilera, they tell a story even whether they wrote the song or not. Those are the successful musicians and singers that are out there that have success in the business. It's really hard to have success in the music business, any business, but particularly the music business.
Do you have a long term plan as far as you being a musician, as far as like getting music out, or especially distributing the music itself, or do you consider yourself almost like an in house type of band and still get the music out there by just staying in like basically locally?
Yeah, that's kind of it. The music business, I think, has always been a very young person's business, and I'm certainly not in that category. And I had my stint in Nashville in the 80s, and I left Nashville pretty quickly, even though I had quite a few doors open back in the 80s. It was pretty rough to play that game in Nashville. And the music business is really for, Chapel Rome, and I hope I said her name right. Anyway, younger people. So now I only create music out of the joy and the fun of doing it. If I take a gig, it's because I think it's going to be fun. If I write a song and take it into the studio, it's not for commercial purposes of success or making a ton of money on it. My goal is for the song to get enough attention that maybe it will be put into a film or a TV show, and that's pretty much the only way musicians can actually make a lot of money or make any kind of money these days, particularly if you're not a star that's touring like Taylor Swift. You know, um, you hope for placement. And I'm over the age where I could even do, a world tour anyway right now. I mean, I'm a more mature actor and musician, and so it's really for fun. And I don't think in terms of commercial success. However, the new Spooky Love may have already found a film to be put in. So whatever a success I have from that will be fabulous. It'll be really fun.
Between
Mary.
working like in film as well as doing your music at the same time, do you feel like it can be a wise investment to even make deals to get your music featured, let's say, into just like only indie films for even better exposure, or do you have a plan for that?
Yeah, I mean, I prefer my music to be in, more major league projects. And Spooky Love may have found one of those. With Sound Exchange and all these streaming services, if the song gets some attention, it's pretty. I do make money with. I do make income with music, and that's really nice to do that. But it's not the goal. The goal is through the passion. I approach any kind of acting project or music project or writing. I'm also writing a book, and all of that is just through the sheer and it's all initiated through the sheer joy of the creative process. And then if it becomes successful, like The Hills Have Eyes did, then that's just gravy. You never know what movie you're doing that might hit or become a flop. You never know that. And I still get great auditions. I just auditioned for Matlock. I didn't get it, but it's very competitive out there right now, and they're not. Even the film business is not as busy as it was even before COVID.
Your experience in television, which you have a quite extensive catalog of that, should an artist wait for that right time to audition for better roles if, and let's say an actual genre is being the trend at the time, like that shows being more successful? Do you feel it could be actually harder to re-enter television as well?
Um, well, that's a great question. I particularly people that are just starting out, I usually advise do it all. Do everything that comes your way. Do everything that's offered. Because even if you do a low budget movie, you may end up with some really great footage to go on your reel. And a lot of the television and film casting these days is based on what a director or a producer can see on film. So the more that you're on film and the more, professional or semi-professional projects you can show yourself, as long as they look professional and not homemade, is valuable, because you don't know if somebody will see that footage and go, oh yeah, that's the person for my project, or my TV show. Even a lot of people, the reels now are incredibly important. I teach acting, and I have younger students, and I teach on Zoom if anybody's interested, and I'm very affordable. And it's a film technique class, and I teach about how to audition and how to put yourself on tape and all the things that are required to actually enter into to get into the game at all, and how to do it as expected by the casting people or the producers and directors. So and agents and managers. So it's not as easy as it looks. A lot of people are at home and they look at these shows and they think, oh, that looks like a lot of fun. It's a lot of hard work, and it takes a long time, and you got to have talent and know what you're doing. And now that we're self-taping, we used to just drive across town and go in the room and audition and stand there with a piece of paper in your hand and do the lines. It was much easier then because now you have to be a camera person and they have different criteria of how they want the tape to be presented, and so there's a lot more to it than just driving across town and auditioning for something. And I think also today more than ever, an artist is really responsible for actually getting themselves out there and creating content themselves. You can't just sit back and wait for somebody to call. If you're trying to get a manager or an agent and you don't have one already, they're going to want to see footage. So you got to get that some way or another.
And between television and film, it can also be challenging to adjust creating a character, like when doing a film, then having to, let's say you had to go do a television show like a month later or 2 months later. Is it hard to bounce from creating one character to a different type of film and then another different type of television, two different realms?
Well, not for me. That is not a challenge for me because my imagination is wild, and I can jump from character to character. But I think a lot of the reason for that was my early training as an actress in New York and even in high school, because I starred in all the plays in my high school, and I would go from a Russian character to Chekhov, from Chekhov to having to use a German accent and a French accent and a British accent, and jumping from character to character when I was younger. And my grades were dependent on my performances sometimes, and then going to New York and working in the New York theater. You go from play to play, and sometimes if you're on tour, you do the character every single night. And I find jumping from character to character not at all challenging. I love to be different characters. This year I did last year, I guess, I did Black Mass, and I play a German mother, and they wanted, of a college girl, and they wanted a slight German accent. Well, I've worked a lot with the German accent, and I did that easily. And then the next project I did, The Boatyard, I'm playing a serial killer that is, crusty and horrible and unkept. And I'm neat and a German mom in one. And no, I love the variety of characters that I get to play.
Do you feel character is built stronger performing in television than creating something entirely new? Is this like really a better way, like patternize your characterization later on in other films?
Well, I love film because there's much more freedom in filmmaking, in actual movies, for the ones that I do, even the ones that I've done that are more mainstream. TV has a formula, television has a formula, and there are certain criterias and rules, and they're very structured. It's not as loose as creating a character on film, where you can do more improvisation. I love to do improvisation for film and see where the scene takes you, and so it's I think the creative process is more prevalent in film than in television. In television, there's a formula, and you're kind of expected to act within that formula.
And which areas do you actually prefer? Let's say if it's an independent type circuit, is it really better for artists to really kind of, or at least out of the country, as far as regional wise, in comparison to within the States or something? Because they're very rapid and it's always different marketing. Do you feel that can heavily affect that artist too if they decide to, let's say, go out of those bounds?
Well, I don't remember, I don't think I have actually filmed out of internationally. Most of my work has been in Los Angeles or New York. I think I did I've done a few things in Texas and stuff, but I don't. I personally have not gotten to work in some of the other countries, so I hope that answers that question.
Well, if let's say a television or a film, let's say they flop commercially, or let's say just bomb completely, do you consider your participation an establishment or actually a success for later on for future roles as you progress in your career, not just fixating
Well,
on the.
no, if something flops, it doesn't. As long as I have a great manager like I have Eileen O'Farrell, and really good agents like ATB and Farrell Talent. As long as they are still submitting me for work, everybody has been in a flop. There's nobody, that hasn't been in a flop or two, unless you're maybe Meryl Streep. And I don't get to audition really for her parts anyway. So the roles that I am up for wouldn't influence a TV show one way or the other. I mean, I'm not going to go do pornography or anything that's too terribly graphic because that's really stupid if you want a longevity if you want longevity in the business. So I'm fairly picky about what I choose to go act in, and certainly with my future in TV or bigger budget films. With that in mind, I try to pick and choose stuff that won't end up being a total embarrassment.
Was other films, let's say for example, The Hills Have Eyes, like as far as impression wise, regardless within that time era, did that ever affect you or reflect against you, despite whether if it was commercial or not commercial successful in future roles? Did they ever look upon you as like, well, you were in this, but we'll take a chance on you anyway?
I feel maybe it did. My agent at the time did not want me to do The Hills Have Eyes because I came to LA as a comedy actress, and I did tons and tons and tons of comedy. I was John Travolta's girlfriend on Welcome Back, Kotter. I did the pilot for the Three's Company. I did Phyllis, Alice, all these shows as well as dramas. Um, and but my strong suit still is, by the way, comedy. In my music shows, they're more cabaret based in terms of delivering comedy between songs. I've always preferred to do comedy rather than drama. But when The Hills Have Eyes, Wes Craven offered me that part. I looked at it as an opportunity to star in a movie. It was established up front, starring Susan Lanier, and I wanted a film that said that. I'd done a lot of TV, a lot of it, and I was frustrated and wanted to bridge the gap to major films. I almost got into Carrie, and was and I was rejected there right at the end. But I had been auditioning for some pretty big mainstream movies, and I had hoped that The Hills Have Eyes would open that door. What it did do, though, I mean, you never know what choices you're going to make, whether it's going to be a good choice or a bad choice. And I don't think there are any bad choices because at the time I had a son, and I met my future husband after I shot The Hills Have Eyes because he had seen The Hills Have Eyes, and he was a fan of mine, and I was a fan of his, Delaney Bramlett, and he had seen that movie the night before I met him, and so I had a long-term 30-year relationship with the man I was in love with because they'd seen The Hills Have Eyes. Would I rather have had a huge, bigger career? Maybe. I don't know. Not no, because I got to be with the man I loved who opened my world to music. I'd been doing music before I met him, but he opened up my world to music, and that was life changing for me, and he was life changing for me. I was deeply in love with this man for 30 years. So, um, um, that to me is more valuable than doing a movie and it's over and you might have a whole lot of money, but I don't know. Are you that happy? I guess I don't know. I don't know the other side of the crystal ball. I just know the side of the crystal ball I got.
And having to go in a preferred genre, like you said, in comedy, and sometimes it can be incredibly difficult, but yet it became more fluent for you. Let's say you were getting more and more horror roles. Did that affect you heavily as well, that you weren't doing as much comedy, that this was, and plus the money was probably a little bit better, even though you couldn't get to that as often compared to the other genres?
Well, I had a pretty fluent career until I hit my mid 30s. And to be honest with you, most females that are working, and I have a ton of friends. I had dinner last night with Tracy Adelson, Tracy Brooks Swope Adelson, who was married to John Adelson, the director of Rocky, as well as many other movies. And we're in the same kind of age category. We were talking last night at dinner. After your mid 30s, your career is going to slow down one way or the other. And for most actors in Hollywood, and there are, of course, exceptions, like the late Diane Keaton, who I loved her work, and Meryl Streep. There are a few that can keep it all going, but things slow down anyway for everybody. If you're no longer the beautiful ingenue, and everybody changes, and so you know. I'm appreciative of having been so busy when I was younger. And not a lot of people get that 15 minutes. I figure Andy Warhol was really right. Everybody gets 15 minutes. Today, I don't think a lot of people are going to even get that, because if you're an influencer, you're probably going to have even less than 15 minutes.
Would you say, like, actresses today who are always presented in horror films and becoming the scream queens, I mean, what advice would you give to these lady actresses today that are doing horror films, that are becoming almost marketable in these kind of films in comparison to the storytelling of the aspect of things? Do you feel like it's also still harder for them to still get that recognizable niche as you're progressing your career?
Well, I don't advise it. I don't advise anyone to just only limit their career to one genre. I never intended to be a scream queen. It sort of ended up that way later, but not earlier. In the 80s, I did refocus. In the late 80s, I refocused my career choices to music. And then I raised my son, so I took a deliberate break from being on the road acting. And then once he was grown, I sort of eased back into the acting, sort of on purpose, and the roles weren't as fabulous as they had been when I was younger. I think that's pretty common among my friends who are still acting in my age category. I I still do comedy. I did a pilot with Casper Van Diem where I play a very funny older woman, Ida, who loves to go to the strip bars, and she's very funny. And that pilot might be picked up, and if so, I would be a regular on that. And I love that over the top kind of crazy funny character. So I don't advise young actors to limit their choices of projects unless they only choose to be known in the horror genre. I would never make that choice, and I would never encourage a young actress just because she's doing horror movie after horror movie after horror movie to do that. it would be safer for me to do it because I'm older and, I kind of don't have, I'm not trying to develop a career at this age. I just appreciate acting and what I get offered now. But as a young actress, no, I think it's a kiss of death.
Oh, go ahead and plug in any websites or anything that you further wanted to promote, and also let us know where else can we check out this Spooky Love.
Well, like I said, Spooky Love, I would love for everybody to check out that song. And it's on Spotify, Apple Music, iTunes. You can go to my Facebook page, Susan Lanier. I'm also known in the music world as Suze Lanier Bramlett. I go by both names, so don't get confused if you see Suze. Everybody calls me Suze, and I started my music career as Suze to separate it from the acting. And so I'm both people. And I'm on Instagram, TikTok, not so much, but going to start doing that more. All of the, Twitter. I'm on all of them. So, I mean X, I guess you call it now. So just put in my name and it'll pop up, including my music videos. So you should have no problem finding me, and I appreciate any kind of listening to my music and whatever.
There you have it, everybody. That is actress and musician Susan Lanier.
Thank you. Thank you for listening. And thank you for having me on the show. It's been a real pleasure. It's been fun.